Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Sharper Skills in 30 Minutes, 5 Hidden Powers of Urban Footprint, brought to you today by the Urban Footprint Customer Success Team. I'm Andy Federer, and joining me today is Customer Success Manager Nathan Stone. Our Sharper Skills webinars are designed to highlight new features, showcase tips and tricks, and help you make the best use of the Urban Footprint platform. In this webinar, we'll review 5 key features in Urban Footprint, showing you how to use them in the work you do. Plus, we'll introduce you to a new feature that we have in beta, custom points of interest. Before turning things over to Nathan, I'd like to remind you that you can ask questions using the chat or Q&A feature in Zoom. As this webinar is relatively short, we'll save questions until the end. I'd also like to remind you that our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, July 29th, and will be the second part of our webinar series on COVID-19 response and recovery. You can find a link to register for that webinar in our most recent newsletter. And with that said, I'll turn things over to Nathan.
Great, thanks a lot, Andy. So my name is Nathan Stone, and I am a Customer Success Manager with Urban Footprint. And today I'm going to walk you through 5 of our favorite features within the Urban Footprint platform and give you a little bit more information about those. The first today is going to be the foundational Urban Footprint function called Save As. So Save Layer As is going to allow you to select a set of features and produce new study areas in a project and create maps with visual hierarchy. Also, newly saved layers of data can help in making complex filtering criteria so that you can focus in on locations of interest. Next is going to be buffering. So a buffered layer contains a single polygon feature representing an area of a specified distance around a selection of features. The control is accessed through the Filter tab of the Layer Details pane. Buffers can also be used in conjunction with or as criteria for filters. Data Extrusion is another feature we would like to highlight today, and it adds another dimension to layer symbology. Symbolizing numeric data using height can be a powerful tool for highlighting spatial patterns and contrasts within your data. Any polygon layer can be extruded according to numeric attributes. Extrusion can be applied along the data classification, with data classification and other layer styling options. Our fourth feature today will be the Normalize by Acre tool. And so this is one of the toggle switches within the platform that produces massive insights into the distributional characteristics of data. And that is, of course, the Normalize by Acre tool. This creates a new visual display of data by showing you numeric values as a density figure by dividing it by the land area. So you actually get a height value there. And then finally, we're going to walk through our 5th feature, which is our map export. So creating compelling maps is critical to conveying information to your teams and your constituents. And so the map export feature produces maps for use in print and on screen. You can configure map orientation, dimensions, and resolution, and specify all the elements needed for a standalone map. Those items include titles, legends, north arrow, scale bar, and logo. And finally, we would like to talk about a bonus feature today, which we are in beta testing on. So this bonus feature is the custom points of interest analysis. The impact of strategic planning in communities can be measured using this new feature. And by engaging it, we can actually get the results of accessibility analytics that are based upon a custom point of interest layer. So these results will display based on that. And so example applications of applying this new custom POI accessibility measure include both COVID work, which we have focused on very heavily recently, as well as non-COVID work as well. So for the COVID side, we know that grocery store access is quite important. We also have shown accessibility to COVID testing centers, as well as temporary hospital sites. And then under other planning, we have items such as siting a new office building, cooling centers during heat waves, new transit stations, EV charging stations, bike share, even access to beaches or recreational sites. And that is the summary of what we're going to cover today. So now we're actually going to jump over into the platform itself and actually walk you through each of these hidden tools within UrbanFootprint. So you can see here that we have a project currently showing in Sacramento, California. And so the thing that you're currently seeing is the land use designations for the downtown area of Sacramento. So the first item we're going to cover is the save layer as. So I'm going to go over here to the base canvas layer and activate that layer. And you can see our layer list pane comes up right here, our details pane. And so we can go into the filter section and actually make a specific selection to create a new layer. So I'm going to go into the land use summary. And then I'm going to select commercial. So this is selecting all commercial properties within the project that we have currently, which is around 4,500 properties. And now we're going to use this little save as button at the very bottom of the screen here, which will allow us to save all the features that we have filtered within this filter. So here we can call this commercial parcels and click OK. And you'll see once that operation completes, the layer menu will return back to its position there, and it creates a new layer within the actual layer list here. We may have to scroll down to find that particular layer, but it exists here within our layer list. So here's that layer. I can pull that back up to the top. I can actually turn off the base canvas so that we can see what our selection save as function did. So here you can see through that save as functionality, we're able to actually segment out that data and pull it into a new layer. All right, moving on to the next item. This is going to be buffering. So today I'm going to show you transit line buffering. That's often something that gets used with corridor analysis and certain land use planning functions around transit. So here you can see we have called up our public transit lines layer. And you'll see that if I activate the layer, we can go into style and we can see the different classifications of transit. So here you can see we have this orangish yellow color, which is tram, streetcar, or light rail. And I'm actually going to do a buffer on that particular line. So we can go into the box selection here, and we can actually select this colored line right here. And you can see that now it's highlighted these routes, which are continuous, obviously. They go back and forth between this downtown Sacramento area. And so now we've got that selected here. So once we have that selected there with the box selection tool, we're going to go into filter, and we're going to find within the filter menu, there's a small square icon right here that you can click on, which activates the buffer tool set. And so here you can see we have add buffer, specifying a distance. So we do have to indicate how far we would like to go. So in this case, we could do 250 as our numeric value. We could leave this as meters if we would like. And we also have two additional metrics as well, feet and miles. So I'm going to choose feet for this today. One thing to note is it does buffer in both directions. So when you create your buffer, it will actually create a 500-foot wide swath because it will go 250 feet in each direction from that layer or feature. So in order to save this buffer and create it, we do have to use the save as function, as I just showed you before on the land use. So now we can call this buffered, and actually if we would like, we can even call this light rail. That layer is then dropped into our layer list here, and we can quickly take a glance and see where we have that. So here's our buffered light rail layer. So I can bring that up to the top and give you a display on that. I'm going to go ahead and clear out my selection here just so we can see our transit lines a little bit better. And I'm going to turn on that buffered light rail layer. So now you can see that surrounding this light rail layer, we actually have these gray lines here. And actually, to make this a little bit more impactful, we can actually go into the style, and we could modify some of the way these displayed. We could actually remove the bus lines. We can also go into the buffered item as well, and we can actually change this to a different color. So we could actually go in and change it to red. And so you can see that a little better You could also change the thickness. So now we can really see that buffered line around this light rail. The cool thing about this is you can actually use this within selection tools and filtering criteria. All right. So the next item I'm going to show you is the 3D extrusion tool. So we'll actually go into our walk access to parks, and we'll see how we can view that in a 3D height version. So right now I've got walk access to destinations pulled up. This is an output from the analytics module. So you'll actually go into Analyze and you'll run the accessibility module. And one of those maps that you'll get is this particular map here. So you can see here I have park time to nearest pulled up. This is a minute measurement, so it's giving you walk sheds. And in order to engage the 3D extrusion tool, you need to hit Edit Symbology right here under Style. And then at the bottom, we have this Extrude Apply 3D Extrusion section here. So you'll click on that, and then you'll toggle this toggle switch on. And so now you're going to start rendering this in 3 dimensions. You do have to set a scale factor. So this is obviously a multiplier effect. And so we can set this to our liking. And then we can use the 3D mode here on the right-hand side of the screen to actually go into 3D mode to make this data the most visible here. So obviously 48 is a pretty good factor here. We can go up higher. It will just increase the height. Sometimes that makes it a little less legible. So you can definitely slide this as needed to get that view that works for you. All right, and in order to turn this off, all we have to do is toggle this switch back off and it will go back to our normal view. And of course, we can go out of 3D mode back into our normal view as well. The next feature to show is the Normalize by Acre tool. So I'm going to go to the base canvas here and select, instead of land use category, I'm going to go to employment. So here you can see within downtown Sacramento the total number of jobs per parcel. But sometimes we want further information related to how dense those jobs are based on the land area that they're sitting on. So the Normalize by Acre toggle is that tool to display that data. So when I toggle this tool here, you'll see the map will actually refresh and you will be able to see a density of jobs based on land size for jobs within the downtown Sacramento area. Obviously, this is important to show density of employment, the differences between development that is further out versus further into the city and how dense that metric is. Obviously, we're seeing a lot more interest in the map here once we normalize by acre and show that jobs density value there. Okay, so the bonus feature. So we do have custom points of interest within our beta testing right now. So we do have some layers that you could bring in, whether it's your own or something that we have currently. One of the things that we have currently is the OSM supermarkets layer. So you can see right here, as we turn this on, we do have points of interest within the community. These are indicating supermarkets and groceries within the Sacramento area. So one of the things that we can actually do is within the manage mode, we can actually modify the point of interest parameters related to that. So if we go down here, you can see that we're currently in beta for custom point of interest attributes. You can see POI number 1, 2, and 3. So we have 3 options here. And so the way we do this is we can go in and select the point of interest layer, which is the OSM supermarkets. We can actually change the name as well. So you can see supermarkets right there. And then we would hit save, and that would save that custom point of interest for that particular scenario. So if we go back to our map here, once we rerun that analytic based on that custom point of interest, you can see within our walk access to destinations that we're going to be displaying something specific to that point layer. So if I scroll down here, we have, as I previously identified, supermarkets time to nearest. And as I click on this, you're going to notice that if I turn this filtered OSM layer back on for Sacramento, now we have these walk sheds based on access to this custom POI, which in this case tends to be, or is supermarkets rather. So this gives you that custom availability for accessibility to be measured to any type of point layer within the platform. And again, this is in beta testing, and we're happy to talk more about this if this is something that you are interested in pursuing with any of your project work. And that rounds out what we have available today to discuss on our 5 hidden powers plus one bonus feature. I'm going to turn it back over to Andy and see if we've got any questions popping up here as we round out.
Thank you, Nathan. Really appreciate that. We certainly do have questions coming in, mainly through the Q&A feature. To organize this a little better, why don't we go kind of feature by feature? So starting with the save layer feature, there's a question or maybe a comment, talking about how sometimes the layer list can get a little crowded. Is there an easy way to maybe find the layer that they just saved?
Yeah, good question. So currently, since we are a web-based application and we exist in a web browser, you could actually just do kind of a find function within your web browser and actually type in the name of the layer that you just created, and it'll take you right to that layer name.
Okay. No, I think that certainly makes sense. Next question on save layer has to do with collaboration. So as you know, UrbanFootprint allows multiple users to be working in projects together, and sometimes that can lead to, again, lots of layers in the list. How do you recommend differentiating between layers if you have multiple people creating this, so it's maybe easy to find the layers you're creating?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So obviously, sometimes we do work with different persons within our firm, and so we may need to ask a question about a certain layer or find your own layers. One of the ways that you can segment these out is you can actually kind of append or make a detail within that layer name itself with the text. So you could use either your initials. You could even actually add a date of creation. So you could add a quick note there, or you could indicate a team name as well for that layer as well. You could put that at the beginning of the layer name or at the end of the layer name.
Okay. Next question on save layer. Lots of questions around this. What happens if you update the base canvas? Does that affect any of the layers that you've saved?
Yes. So if you go in and actually recode or retype your land use within the base canvas, and you have done a save as, so let's say you have a commercial property that you've realized is actually maybe less commercial and more in a different category. If you do change that within the base canvas, that will push itself into that save as layer as well. So if you did an export, it will also remove that there.
Okay. And I think last question on save layers. Do you have any recommendations on some quick wins you can get by using this feature? Any sort of tips and tricks?
Yeah, there's a couple different things that you could pursue. So you can make sub-selections of data using the buffer. So you could actually do a join and then a save as, so that you can create kind of subset land use tables for like a specific corridor. You can also do things such as going into the filter section and specifying your numerical filtering for being greater than 1. So if you're looking for any parcel that has any employment on it, you could actually designate that filter as 1 or greater, and then do a save as, and then you would have all parcels with employment within your community. You could also do this for dwelling units as well, so you can segment out areas that have dwelling units versus not. Same thing could be said for population as well.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to buffering. Question here through chat. Is it possible to buffer from transit stops?
Yes, actually. So our buffer tool works on both all different types of file formats, polygon, point, and line. So it would actually work very well for transit stops as well. And it'll show up as a circular buffer, of course.
Okay, no, that helps. Next question on buffering. If you want to make a polygon smaller, can you use buffering for that? There's a bit of a pro tip here.
Yes. So we do have a workaround for that. If you would like to actually go interior to that original polygon, you can type in your numerical value within the buffer and then go back to the very beginning of that number set and actually add a negative symbol. And it will actually create that buffer interior to that original polygon.
Great. And then last question on buffering. It's a comment here. Notice that there's a buffer symbol on when you're joining layers together. Can you maybe describe how that works or show an example?
Yeah, so you can certainly do kind of a multi-function save as, where you actually designate a join and a buffer at the same time, rather than creating distinct layer sets. You can actually do that all in one action.
Great. So moving on to extrusion, what are some of the sort of most common columns in Urban Footprint that you can or should be using extrusion on?
Yeah, so these normally relate to your numeric values. So that's the way the tool is currently set up within the platform. So the things that would be really beneficial to show would be something like population characteristics. So where is population residing? You could also do the same thing for number of employees and show where the workforce is residing as well. Dwelling units could also be established, so you can see where your multifamily units are as well. And you can also use some of the accessibility modules as well.
Great. Next question on 3D extrusion. It says the classes shown by default are pretty coarse. Is there a way to adjust those to produce sort of classes that are sort of aligned to the ranges that are needed or they want to portray?
Yes, we do have the ability to modify the class boundaries. So those buckets can be shifted and changed as needed. You can add additional classifications as well. So if you're displaying 5 and you need a 6th, you can add a 6th. You can also modify those bookends of those classifications as well. So you can actually hand type in your values if you want it to be lower or larger, smaller or larger. You can make those modifications. We do want to point out, I should point out a pro tip here, that if you are going to make modifications and you're hand keying information, it's often better to actually start at the very top of that list with the largest values and then work your way back. If you do overlap values, it can actually remove one of those buckets because it's collapsed them together.
Got it. No, that's definitely good advice. So let's move on to normalizing data. So can you remind us what layers that works with?
Yes. So the base canvas is really where that shines, and that's where that is available for the most part. And some of your scenario canvas layers will also do this as well.
Okay, just to clarify another question here, does that work with uploaded layers?
No, not currently.
Okay. Not a lot of questions on Normalize, kind of moving on to map export. Is there a way to make sure the maps that I'm exporting are all sort of centered on the same position?
Yeah, there are custom saved positions that you can actually work through. So if I go back over here to the platform, I can actually show right here in the top right-hand corner, we have this little tool called Saved Map Positions. So you can actually go in and save that and actually give it a title of your choosing. So we could call this Downtown Study, and then we can actually save this. And you can see right here, it will actually dynamically update. So at any point that you're in a different map view, you can actually zoom back into that by just clicking on that name. And every time you do an export, it will be in that exact position.
Oh, that's neat. Thank you. Moving on to the new points of interest feature. What geometries can you use for that? Can you use polygons or just points?
Yeah, so the custom points of interest is built to only work on points. So if you did have a geometry that was different from that, maybe it's more like a line, you would have to drop multiple points, but really it is built for single points. And you could certainly have multiple points within a layer, as you see here with this supermarkets example.
Got it. Got it. Last question, and if, as a reminder, if you have anything, please feel free to drop that in now. What is the source of the point of interest network that we're looking at, and in general in UrbanFootprint?
Yeah, so we use a OSM, reported walk and bike network, and we do have some more information related to that within our accessibility documentation. You can access that through the Analyze mode, and actually we have this little three-dot icon right here. You can actually open that and then just click on Review Methodology, and that will give you further information related to that.
Well, very good. I think that kind of wraps things up. Really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us for today's webinar. As a reminder, if you are interested in being part of the beta user group for the custom point of interest feature, please reach out to your customer success manager or through our support team. We can discuss that further with you. And I look forward to seeing everyone on our next webinar. Thank you.